are going to wrap it up with a bang. We got some energy in the room, and for all the folks streaming, watching us live, congratulations on making it through the program as well. So we are going to have our final program. As you can see, we've got 3 panelists up here. I am going to introduce each of them. They are each going to have the opportunity to talk for a few minutes about their organization and what they are doing. And then we've got some time for question and answer. So starting off with Martine Brousse, on our left. Martine is a healthcare specialist, patient advocate, certified mediator, founder and president of AdvaMed Pro, which is a patient advocacy company based in Culver City. Martine helps clients audit records, lower medical bills, resolve insurance payment issues, and defend their rights. Next to Martine, we have James Romano, who is the Director of Government Relations and Advocacy for Patient Services, Inc., or PSI. PSI is a national nonprofit patient assistance organization that assists families with rare diseases and chronic illnesses access needed treatments through health insurance premium assistance and cost-sharing assistance. And on the far right, we've got Joan Warren, who is a nurse and is chair of the California Chronic Care Coalition. Joan is also vice chair of the board of directors for the California Health Cooperative, a nonprofit organization administering programs throughout California to promote quality life and healthcare to the underserved populations. Joan is also a diabetes nurse expert. So we will get started, and Joan, if you would like to start off making your presentation about your organization and your work. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming back from the break. My name is Joan Werblun, and I am a nurse, a diabetes specialist, and I am currently the chair of the board of directors of the California Chronic Care Coalition, which, how many of you have heard of us? I have friends in the audience. The audience is stacked. We are a nonprofit organization. We were formed in 2007 when 2 tremendous forces met. Governor Schwarzenegger put a call out to bring people together to talk about healthcare and what was happening. And one of the people invited in that group is an other force, Liz Helms. And she was taking charge of the group. It was a work group to talk about where healthcare was going. And so it's how many years we've been talking about healthcare. And out of that meeting came an organization that year became the California Chronic Care Coalition. Our focus is on chronic care. Our main focus is on the patient. We have multiple programs that we're involved with. We are a coalition of other groups. Some of the groups are patient groups. We have some corporate members. We have 31 organizations now that are officially united with us, and we're always looking for more. So if those of you who are watching this offshore, please call us. I'd love to go to Australia. I heard someone from Australia. So, we are spreading. We are now going across the country with the program. Our newest program is what I'm here to talk to you about today. We are very involved in looking at and tracking and protecting all of us for inequities and the falling apart of the healthcare system and the things that we're seeing. So we represent tens of thousands of people through these 31 organizations, and we basically represent all of you. We've just launched a new program, and it's called My Patient Rights, which means you, me, all of us. And it's to help you work with some of the problems you're having with your insurance, myself included. You can go, this is online, and as you leave, I've left bookmarkers out on the front desk, and please take one because it has the address for you to use on your computer. So it's for everyone. It's for you, it's for your children, it's for everyone that you're associated with. So it's called My Patient Rights. And the first thing is knowing your rights. And I have to make sure I don't hit the wrong button here. Your rights are important for you to know, and in order to deal with the problems you're having, it's important that you have an understanding of your rights and that you have someone to help you through the steps of the rights. That's important. Most people we talk to don't know where to go first when something happens. And it oftentimes leads them to step after step, call after call, and not really progressing. So that's what we're hoping to help you. This is your roadmap. This is your guide. This is going to give you the power to be your own best advocate, okay? So knowing all of your rights, when you go into this program on your computer, this is what you're going to see. These are the slides from the program. So we talk about barriers to prescriptions. We talk about medical bills from out of network. I don't know how many of you have had bills out of network. You go in to have a surgical procedure. Not only do you get the hospital bill, but now you suddenly get a bill from the anesthesiologist, from all these other people that contract. Those are out of network bills, and they're becoming more and more prominent as days go on. We talk about denials. You have rights if you're denied to see a specialist. And there are also patient rights that ensure that you have a time frame to work in. They can't just say, no, we can't do that. Getting help. We are taking this program across the country. And the states that you see on this map, there are 17 of them so far who have officially signed on. When you get to this page in your computer, it's interactive. You pick out the state for those who are on the East Coast, wherever you see this blue state. If you click on it, it will then immediately go to your state. And it will provide you with the information of who to call and how to work your way through the problems that you're having, whether if it requires a simple phone call to your plan, if that doesn't work, so that you can go all the way through the process. And we're there to help. You can always come back to us, and we have people who can help you if you get stuck. Filing a complaint. This will walk you through how do you file a complaint. Who do you file the complaint? We have the list of the top insurance companies, health plans in California. And you will find a lot of this information the same for all of the states it walks you through. Each state really has different guidelines, whether if they have insurance commissioners or they have, client helping, patient advocacy. So they're all a little bit different, but you can click on the state that's applicable to you. We believe in keeping you informed. That's one of our major goals. We're on Twitter. We use all of the social network, so you can hear from us what's going on. We track, participate in a lot of legislation, as you might imagine. And there's a lot going on right now. We also work with other organizations, so we feel, and it has shown us, that working together, we can do a lot. So if you would like to join us, or you belong to an organization that you would like to see join in this network, please feel free to make the phone calls. And we do answer calls. The next thing we're working on right now, concurrently, is one of the most significant things. We have two things going on. I skipped one here. Wrong one. Sharing patient stories. Every person in this room has a story. We've heard some of them today. We feel it's extremely important that we get to tell your story, that you share it with others to show that you can be effective. So we have been going around. We've just done 4 conferences. We have a videographer with us, and we interview those people who want to be interviewed. It's voluntary. You can interview with us, and then it'll stay with us if you don't give us permission to share it. If you give us permission to share it, then we can use it. When we go to visit legislators, they tell us those are just anecdotal stories. We've now got pictures and live stories. So If any of you have stories or you would like to participate in one of these roundtables, please see me before you leave and I'll get your information. This is for you and your organizations to use. It's an advocate toolkit. It's to help you understand how to use social media, how to use Twitter to be effective in getting the word out, to communicate. So it's a very effective toolkit to help you organize your organizations and to come join our organization. Okay, and we are easy to contact.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I want to thank Dominic for the invitation. We met about 8 or 9 years ago in Ontario, California, and Dominic were on a panel, I don't know if you remember this, for National Cornerstone Specialty Pharmacy. And I gave a presentation about how great I thought the Affordable Care Act was going to be. And Dominic came afterwards, and he kind of disagreed with me, which actually, I think we ended up both being right. Some of the good parts are the good parts, and the bad parts have played out to be bad parts of it. But afterwards, he came up to me. I'm thinking, oh God, he's going to tell me how wrong I am, and then I'm a commie pinko liberal, and he was so nice that it was great. So thank you very much for inviting me. That's one of my. I was bracing myself. Oh, he's going to tell me I'm wrong. I'm with a national nonprofit organization named Patient Services Incorporated, PSI, a national nonprofit patient assistance organization. We help people with rare diseases access treatments and therapies. And how we do that is through a number of different ways. We raise private donations into disease-specific funds and then help patients both on public coverage, Medicare, and then private coverage, help them with their health insurance premium assistance, pharmacy treatment out-of-pocket assistance, co-payment assistance. We have attorneys on staff that help patients obtain their disability benefits, and we also have other types of assistance programs. We are entering our 28th year. PSI started by a gentleman named Dr. Dana Kuhn. Dr. Kuhn was a Presbyterian minister in Jackson, Tennessee. And in 1983, while playing basketball at the church picnic, Dr. Kuhn fell and broke his ankle. He had mild hemophilia, the blood clotting disorder, and he went to the emergency room. They set the ankle. They saw, oh, hemophilia, we're going to give you clotting factor concentrates. In 1983, little did they know that it was contaminated. And when they infused Dr. Kuhn, they gave him hepatitis C and HIV. Didn't know at the time. Unfortunately then, he unknowingly infected his wife, and she passed away of HIV, one of the first women in Tennessee to do so. Dr. Kuhn left Tennessee with his 2 children, moved to Richmond, Virginia, thinking he was going to die a day, a week, a month, a year. He wanted his children to be taken care of. In the meantime, he had a $450 COBRA that he needed to pay, and he needed to get a job. He got a job at a construction site and that his brother was running, and he fell in, probably not smart with hemophilia, by the way, as he always tells the story. And he went and fell and got a hematoma and went to the hemophilia treatment center at MCV Hospital in Richmond. And the head of the treatment center came down, happened to be on call that day, and serendipitously gave Dana a job as a clinical counselor. And one of the things, working with families who had children with terminal illnesses. And one of the common threads through a lot of stories were people actually, financially devastated while trying to keep their loved one alive. And that's how PSI was born. Last year, we helped 36,000 Americans in all 50 states with 30 different disease groups. One of our patient programs is a program for chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. It is my goal in the next 12 months to expand that program from just being CIDP to include all types of neuropathies and Guillain-Barré syndrome. So that's the work ahead of me. So we're looking for funders for that. So just a FYI. Dominic earlier mentioned Fabry disease. We have a big Fabry disease program. So if that patient is still watching, I'm going to get the information to Dominic to get to you. But one of the big challenges that we're facing is an organized attack by the insurance industry who, quite frankly, one time I was at a conference, NCSL, the National Conference of State Legislators, at Virginia night, and I was talking to this nice guy, and he finally said, oh, what organization are you with? I said, oh, PSI. And I said, we help rare disease patients obtain their health insurance coverage. And he goes, oh my God, I hate you. I said, well, usually that takes about 30 minutes. We're still at 15. He goes, I represent AHIP in Virginia. Okay, well, thanks. But honestly, there's been a real concerted effort to limit the effectiveness of patient assistance. And I know in California here is a perfect example. There's a bill moving through the legislature that is trying, at one point, well, it's still trying to limit manufacturer copay cards and coupons. To me, that's only a hop, skip, and a jump away from eliminating copay assistance, whether it's via manufacturer or via a national nonprofit. There have been articles recently attacking, over the last couple of years, nonprofit organizations who partner. And then there's been the third-party payer rule in Washington. It was a rule released by CMS that allows insurance providers in the Obamacare plans to prohibit premium assistance. So we've been leading the fight in Washington regarding this. We had legislation last year, the Access to Marketplace Insurance Act. We ended up with close to 250 co-sponsors. This past year, we did a letter to Secretary Price asking him to administratively make the change. We were able to get about 184 members of Congress to sign on, about 30 from California, so we're really actually very happy about the work we're doing. But if I leave you with one message, and we'll talk about this in question and answer too, it's vitally important that you get to know your state, whether it's your state representative, state delegate, state senator. This is the theme I like to leave for people. Make sure you get to know them, but make sure they get to know you. And that means making an appointment, going to the state legislature, whether it's in Sacramento or in your state capitals or in the district at home, and discuss your story. I know people always say, oh, just tell your story. But explain, what GBS is or CIDP is or MMN is, what you go through, what treatment you take, how expensive it is, what kind of coverage you have, and tell them that what you go through. And those are the moments that you establish that relationship, that when, and when the insurance industry is in their offices saying, oh, you have to give us this and you have to give us that, they'll remember you saying, well, I know I have a constituent who has this problem, and how are we going to help this person? So I'll leave you with that, and if you have any questions, I'm here afterwards, and thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Martine Brousse, and I'm a patient advocate. I was a billing manager for 20 years before turning to the side of patients, and I'll let you know how in a second. But first, I'll start with a story. Last year, I decided to change the profile, the financial profile of my small, tiny little company to an S Corp. So I figured I could gather up a couple of brain cells and fake some kind of enthusiasm, and I started poring over irs.gov. And I did that for a few hours, and just before falling into a 12-hour coma, and figuring maybe I can market this as the cure for insomnia, I figured out that that was not what I wanted to do with my time. And I went about looking for somebody who could actually translate for me what the language meant. What did these forms mean for me? This is what I am for you. I am a translator of what the forms that you receive as far as statements or explanation of benefits or authorizations letter, denials letter, all of that. So what does it mean specifically to you? Joan mentioned earlier out-of-network claims. This is a huge problem in the United States right now. It's going to get worse, and this is a very large part of my practice. As a patient advocate, I draw on my experience as a billing manager. I know every single aspect of a billing process, from coding all the way to state appeals. And my job, as well as my strength, is working on your behalf to find where your rights might have been misled, find where an error may have been made, or where I can find documentation, evidence, some kind of argument that will allow me to fight on your behalf and get your insurance to pay that bill for you, or maybe get that provider to correct a code so that indeed you will not be billed for that. And if all else fail, I can at least tell you that, yes, you know, you are going to have to pay taxes, or you are going to have to pay that bill, but you can be assured that I have done my best to make sure that what you owe is truly what you owe and the minimum of what you owe. I find that a number of my clients come to me not knowing whether or not they have any problem, not knowing or not whether they need to appeal an insurance. The bill comes, oftentimes they pay it, you know, once the last notice comes in. You know, if you don't pay within 10 days, you will be sent to collection. As far as I know, that's blackmail. But you know what? I did that on the side of doctors for 20 years. I know where the other side comes from. The doctor has provided services, the hospital has provided services, they have a right to be paid. Question is, what is fair, what is right, and how can you, as a patient, understand all these codes, all this language, and all the games that are being played behind your back? And you are the last one standing there with your hands like this. You're receiving the bill, and everybody's telling you it's your fault, it's your insurance. You chose your insurance, even if you didn't. Or the insurance would say, well, you went to that doctor, you went to that emergency room, even if you didn't. So you are at fault. No matter what, you are victimized over and over again from the lack of knowledge and from being placed in a situation where decisions are being made for you of a financial nature that you have no clue about, oftentimes no advance notice about, and oftentimes don't know how to handle. So people like me can help you navigate that side of this journey that you are on. Take off the burden a little bit, some of the burden that you have been carrying, so that you get that peace of mind knowing that even if you do owe something, and chances are you will because you have a deductible and an out-of-pocket, at least I have done the best to lower your liability as low as can be. And if it can be done, that maybe we can get you financial assistance, or we can get you some kind of negotiation. I'm a mediator, therefore I can draw legal one-time contracts. And you know, there's more than one way usually to get a bill lowered. I find that sometimes finding creative solutions, to find creative solutions, you need to go out of the box completely. For example, I had a patient, she came to me, she had $7,500 bill from a hospital. She had an ankle surgery, they used graft tissue. She signed on it. She authorized the treatment, but the doctor did not tell her, the surgeon did not tell her that this was actually something that the FDA had not approved. So the insurance denied it, investigational. There's nothing I can do. The FDA did not approve it. I cannot force the insurance to pay. However, contacting the hospital, talking here, talking there, I figured out that they had a cash fee for other patients with no insurance, $4,300. So right there, the bill was already reduced. But that's not enough. I started pouring through medical records. I started calling people right and left. I found out that the surgeon had allowed 3 members of the wholesaler, salespeople, to come in the operating room to observe. Did the patient know? No. And I found out from the hospital. But the hospital, whoever told me this, did not find this in the medical records. This was not in the medical records. So I got the hospital right there. What do you mean? You have 3 strangers working in an operating room and you don't know it? Or you know it, but you don't write it because, again, the patient did not give consent? What is that? Then I called the manufacturer. Manufacturer couldn't do much. They were not aware that the wholesaler had sent people in the operating room. But the patient was very happy with the surgery, with the results. So in the end, I put together a deal where in exchange for no one contacting their lawyers, the manufacturer donated the same amount of tissue to the wholesaler. The wholesale company donated it to the hospital. The hospital donated it to the patient retroactively, took back the $7,500, and in exchange, the patient again forgot what had happened and gave a testimony to the manufacturer for their FDA approval. So that as a mediator makes me feel really good because everybody is happy. Everybody got something, even if it was not a lawsuit. And in the end, everybody was so happy we did the same deal for the second foot. But that is basically what I find my job to be the most interesting at doing, is finding creative solutions that will allow every party to get something. I'm not out there to, yes, I have to play the game, but I'm not gonna badger a doctor, or I'm not gonna insult an insurance company. Things are the way they are. My job is to find what evidence can be used for you so that your specific situation can be improved, so that your financial burden can be eased, and so that you can focus on your health, on your recovery, on your life, and not worry about having to learn coding or having to Google, what the hell does that explanation of benefit mean? I don't understand. You call the insurance company, they'll tell you it was paid correctly, guaranteed. Well, it's not, and I can tell you that. So never take any bill at face value, always question, and there's always usually a way to get some kind of reduction in a statement or some kind of correction from your insurance company, as long as you know where to look and what to ask for. So, thank you.
The Neuropathy Action Foundation has been supporting patients and advocating for patients since its inception in 2006 when Dominic started it. And it's because of relationships with individuals like these three experts that we've been so successful. The organization has been able to help so many patients. So because we are fortunate to have these three experts here, we do have a few minutes left in the afternoon. If anybody has any questions that they think these folks might be able to answer, that would be great. And I'll hand you the microphone, then I'll give it back for them to answer.
This is for Martina. How would you recommend that people find out information that they suspect happened but was not in their medical record?
Very good question. You have to sometimes look in, there's the official medical records, and sometimes you have some other forms. For example, if, like in this case, there should have been an authorization specifically allowing an external stranger coming to observe the surgery. That was not there. Therefore, if a patient did not give consent, there's a legal matter there of whether or not, this is kosher, and you can use that. Another thing is to speak to the staff. You would be surprised. Most people want to talk, and if you give them the opportunity, or if you just, sometimes, depending on how I speak, who I speak with, I may be the president of my company, I may be an employee of my company, or, I have called more than once a hospital and saying, this is my first week on the job, and my boss wants to send this paperwork to your CFO, and I'm sorry, I can't spell his name, and I've lost his email address, and you know what, if you call the 800 number at the hospital, they will give you that information every time. Or actually, you ask for the assistant, it's even better, because the assistant will actually look at it. I've really closed a number of cases where I couldn't get anywhere with a billing manager, but by going another way. So if you suspect something should be in the medical records, it is also your right to ask for those medical records to be reviewed as well as edited. You have to file a specific form with a facility or with a provider, and then by law they have 60 days to respond to you. Even if they decide that they do not want to change the medical records, and chances are they won't because of the risk of malpractice, at least they will include your letter explaining what should be changed and why it should be changed. That will become part of your final medical record content. So anybody else requesting those medical records will see your letter as well.
I think they should make a movie about you and doing this because you're doing a great job, or at least a television show.
And on Friday afternoon, I'm the cleaning lady.
Wonder Woman, yeah.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Okay.
I had an issue not long ago with Medicare. How do you get help when they make the error?
All yours. Oh.
That's a good one. You can retire if you can figure that one out. Well, you can take that long-awaited cruise. It's difficult dealing with Medi-Cal because they have so many different divisions. But, if you go online and follow some of the steps that we have outlined with Medi-Cal, because a lot of Medi-Cal is managed care. And there is a division of managed care within the state of California. And you can follow the suggestions on dealing with those divisions. So it sometimes takes a little longer because there's a lot more people to deal with, but you can get through. But I would just follow the steps and go all the way up to managed care, particularly if you're in a managed care Medi-Cal, because they're responsible the same as all the other plans. Then I would probably take, yeah. That's a tough one, and I would say consult legal aid. I would take that path. Mm-hmm.
Another question from the audience.
Hey, thanks. Well, first of all, you guys deserve a heck of a lot of credit, and all you guys rock, and thanks for your work. Absolutely. Question for James on, I feel like I'm screaming into this mic. Question for James, you mentioned different pieces of state legislation and federal legislation, not to put you on the spot, but just curious if you can point out one piece of, well, actually two. One good piece of legislation that's out there in the states that everyone should get behind on the positive side of things, and I guess number two, a real negative piece of legislation that folks could rally against. Because you've got a great audience here, you get folks watching online, obviously, so it's a good platform to kind of generate some grassroots support, and obviously in support of a positive piece of legislation and in opposition to a harmful piece of legislation that's pending. So again, not sure whether you can answer that, but not to put you on the spot, but thanks.
Well, I know for the bad legislation, I just was looking at a bill that was in the Nevada legislature. It was a transparency bill. And I shouldn't say it was a bad piece of legislation, but what you're seeing now is a couple of years ago, there was these cap the copay bills. And our organization was involved with one in Virginia. And these were great bills. It mirrored the federal legislation, which was the McKinley caps. It was called PATA, Patients Access to Treatments Act. And it really brought attention to the tiers, the copay tiers in insurance plans. On a state level, though, we started working on these campaigns, if you know, the way insurance is mostly regulated on the state level. So, I hate to say it like this because I feel like I'm being overly just obtuse on it, but the insurance lobbies in states are very strong. And if you go to most state legislatures, the committee that regulates them, everybody on there, if you look what they do, it's their insurance agent. So it's just, I think it's a very strong lobby in the state, stronger than actually federally. And what the insurance industry was doing then is, okay, if you're going to have a captive copay bill, we want a pricing transparency bill. And I know we were talking about some questions that we were thinking about. What the most, I think, dangerous legislation that's going to be coming out in the years to come, everything's going to have to do with drug pricing. And I know this bill in Nevada, what it had in it, there was some transparency legislation, but one of the lines was they wanted every nonprofit organization that had accepted donations from manufacturers to have to report that to the Department of Health and Human Services in the state. And fine, I have nothing to hide. I'll tell you who gives us, but what would that be used for? And I think there is a move right now by insurance and some of their allies in the media to discredit patient groups that accept donations from manufacturers. And they're using it as this, somehow you're like, it's to discredit the patient groups. You're doing the bidding of the manufacturers, which is not the case. It's the fact that most of us need these treatments to live and survive. And so obviously we're very, in touch with what's going on. And I think that's an example of bad legislation. Good legislation, I have to say. The Access to Marketplace Insurance Act that I helped write, there was the Kramer bill last year, and it's going to be the Kramer bill again this year, was a piece of legislation that I think was wonderful. And I'd love to get everybody involved with us again when the bill's introduced to working at co-sponsors. I'm going to pass it over because there's probably other state legislation.
Yeah, we are sponsoring a piece of legislation for California. We're not disease specific. Our organization is 31 different organizations that cover all the chronic disease field. But we are taking a broad look, and we have penned and submitted with Assemblywoman Waldron AB 1353. And what that is continuity of care. And I think this is one of the best pieces of legislation I've ever seen. And it's become our mantra. But what it does is it protects all of us that, and particularly those of you with neurological problems, it takes time to get your medication, the right medicine, the right dose, and you finally are in a good place where, you're seeing some relief, you're seeing some progress in dealing with your situation. And all of a sudden, you change insurance. It can be because you're on your spouse's policy, or your company is changing companies and you have to change. And so you get a new insurance plan that says, I'm sorry, we really don't believe what you've been through, and that's how they're phrasing it. So you need to go back and redo your medicines and prove to us and your new doctor that these cheaper drugs don't work. And there you go, you're back to ground zero. Just because you changed insurance programs, it doesn't mean your condition changed. And we're concerned because we're getting reports of people having problems with their transplant drugs. I mean, you lose a body organ if you don't get your drugs. And you've had the transplant. Why do you have to prove and go through these steps? And this is step therapy, and they're requiring people to go back and do step therapy. So our bill that we're proposing will not allow that to happen, that there'll be a period, we'd like it to be a year, we might be able to get 6 months, but the point is they can't just suddenly take you back to ground zero and make you start all over. It's well documented, you've got all your medical records, your physicians can talk if they want. But it's to get you over the switchover in your plan. And I think that's in my experience of 30-some years, that's one of the best pieces, if we can secure that for you. And it's continuity of care. So please track it. Check our website.
asking about dental work.
There are always reasons, that they give for canceling, but there's always, that needs to be looked at by a case by case. This bill is concerned with continuity, but I think there may be a space in there we can look at it. We'll certainly look at it. Yeah, it is. It is.
Well, unfortunately, we have come to the time conclusion to our conference. I'd like to take a moment just to thank these three wonderful experts for sharing their time with us and expertise. So I imagine they'll probably be around for a few minutes if you have some questions that you want to ask offline. So I'd like to take this moment also to thank you all for attending. Again, congratulations on making it through this fabulous program. Again, thank you very much. One enormous thank you to the man behind the scenes that did all the work to bring this together, Dominic Spadafora. And thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.